Yeah, so Vox Machina has a couple of cool innovations like that, but it is still very like clunky driving controls where it's like very slow.
I feel like that's a holdover from like whatever fantasies of like the World War II tank era there was. Like that somehow went into future tech and became like mechs, but that doesn't interest me as much because of the clunkiness. Like mechs to me, I liked the more modern future or like sleek future version of mechs that you would often see in like anime.
What do you think about like a Pacific Rim style
That's
mech?
exactly the first example I brought up when I was describing like what type of mech thing do I want to work on in VR? Do I want to play around with? I want to do something where the cockpit is more inspired by like Pacific Rim, Darling and the Franxx, Eureka 7. Those are like wildly different interface systems, but the idea is like wildly freaking iterate on the cockpit because they all kind of boil down to either having like a couple of handles that you kind of throttle forward or back, or it'll be like I'm just tracking my body, right? So like Pacific Rim, I think it would be kind of cool, at least at a like bare level prototype, if you made a gigantic mech character that had like an open stomach that the player like their play space was put in, almost like their Krang from TMNT, like the little brain creature that sits inside the big robot. Doing that, but in a VR perspective, would be really interesting, and then being able to control the creature Pacific Rim style, just with your basic like hand tracking, maybe using the thumbstick to actually control the mecha's legs, and then like having full arm control and head control or chest control rather of like the hands and the using the head you control the chest, which turns the belly.
There's at least one game I can think of, or like demo, that's exactly that. I'm trying to remember the name. The IOTA project. And it's so yeah, your hands are tracked, and so like when you move your hand, the mech hand also moves out there, which is a cool feeling, and like you can like block projectiles and smash stuff and whatnot. Like that's one of the things that really jumps out to me when you start talking about mechs in VR is like I want to just like smash my hand through a building and like watch it collapse around me, and just like massive property damage, very like feel like you are a giant destructive machine. Like, can you imagine having like a slow motion punching battle with Godzilla, but you're in a mech?
I 100% can imagine this, and that's why I want to like prototype this out.
Yeah. The other thing that jumps out to me is when you're at least saying Pacific Rim in VR is having another person. And so now it's like two people in the cockpit. The person on the left, their left arm controls the left arm of the mech. The person on the right, their right arm controls the right arm of the mech. And then using their other hand, they have to like synchronize it in order to get the mech to move forwards. So you're like swinging your arm or something.
Yeah, 100%. And the other way I could see that Pacific Rim idea working out is if the mech only operates or like does an action, almost like it's turn-based, in a sense, if we abstract it, of like both players need to do the same action with roughly the same timing in order for the mech to then say, okay, I will do this action. So like it almost becomes this like turn-based thing or like action quick time thing of like, oh no, Godzilla's gonna go punch us, like Matt, on the count of 3, block 1, 2, 3, and we do like the X formation, and if our timing's right or if our timing's perfect, we get like this cool like laser barrier shield in front of it to like really pump up the anime. Yeah, like that stuff would be cool. Or doing something that is more like you're seated in like an Echo cockpit, or like the Superman ride, right, where you're like strapped in but your feet go out from under you, and then like you just have handles in front of you and maybe like button inputs, or it's like half gesture tracking, half like button inputs. There's just like a lot of cool different things we can mess with. Like I haven't even like mentioned, maintenance systems for the mechs, and these could be either like toys you interact with or whole mini games, right? Like if your mech is overheating, like it definitely somewhat changes what you interact with based on if you're like low tech or future tech. Like if we were doing that Iron Wolf like World War II style mech, like overheating would get taken care of in VR by me reaching out and like turning a valve that would like release steam. But if we take that Darling in the Franxx concept or the Eureka 7 concept, which is more like piloting a jet cockpit, but you're in the head of a mech, that could be more like, oh no, this thing is overheating. Like maybe you have to like punch open a panel and like hit a button sequence to like cool it down, or it could be this like 3D hologram Half-Life Alyx style mini game.
Yeah, I actually made a game like that.
I did not know this.
Yeah, in college, I made a game. It was not a mech piloting; it was spaceship piloting, or like airship piloting. But it was the same idea of like, we want to fire the super cannon. Okay, let me go up to the maintenance area and like twist these valves to get the pressure under control into like the correct range. And then the person at the console like hits the button and you shoot big laser. And it had like a bunch of interactions like that where one person had to like go to another spot and like read a thing or like fix something, and as you took damage fires would appear and you'd have to go around and put them out with a fire extinguisher.
That's cool. That sounds like the more like kind of like low tech, almost like Guns of Icarus.
Yeah, it's a little Guns of Icarus.
Okay, because you're moving around like the thing.
Specifically, because this was like for a demo experience, not to go into households. And so what we did was we'd said, this only works in a 2 meter by 2 meter space. And what we had was 2 separate spaces, but you didn't locomote horizontally at all. So you're like, the cockpit of the airship was the same size as the play space. So you would walk around, but it had elevators that you would step onto and you would hit a button and it would take you to another level. So there were multiple levels to the ship, but you weren't like teleporting anywhere.
You were sharing the same play space basically.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So you never like blink teleported anywhere. It was always like, this corner is this corner of the room, but I'm either upstairs or I'm downstairs.
That sounds like a pretty good idea, or like, it sounds like a real good genre that could be buffed out and explored, especially for Quest. Like,
yeah,
they're like, multiplayer Quest is great, but I feel like most of them don't even think like that. They don't think like, hey, how do we like use everybody's play space, but also like allow them their own individual play space. And yeah, you mentioning your like the spaceship with like, I'm just thinking like you, me, 2 other people are playing. There's this like 4-floor spaceship that we're trying to maintain, and like, yeah, like you said, we have like the objectives of things like happening on different levels of the ship, and we're all like just able to freely move around, but we can see ourselves like walking to the elevator, and we can actually like share the elevator space and like thwomp, right, like all over.
Man, it's Lovers in a Dangerous Space-Time.
Yes,
I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah. Jenna and I.
Just
oh my god,
in
yes.
VR.
Oh, I played through like 75% of that. Definitely that in VR. That sounds great.